Hey, what's up, and welcome back to another episode of the Strategic CLO Podcast. I'm your host, Noel Bagwell, and we've got a lot to get into today. It's pretty exciting, I think. We're doing a pretty cool episode. It's called what did I? And it's about AI, right? Let's see. I had a really cool title all lined up, and I just misplaced my show notes. What was I going to call this one? It was oh my gosh, my brain is overloaded with all kinds of information. So yes, here we go. Sorry, title is AI and the Law Navigating the Legal Frontier in the Age of Artificial Intelligence. Sorry about that, just kind of bungled it from the beginning, but we are going to be talking about the intersection of artificial intelligence and the law, how AI has reshaped and is reshaping the business landscape. Also talking about growth stage companies and how they face pretty much a new frontier of legal challenges and opportunities. So we're going to do a little rundown of statistics about AI's current and projected impact on business, critical legal considerations for AI integration. What else we got? Data privacy, intellectual property, liability, and that sort of thing. And I'm going to try to imagine with you a case study of a growth stage company successfully navigating AI related legal hurdles. I don't want to use one of my actual clients, but I do want to kind of give you a picture of what it would look like to work through these AI issues for growth stage companies with a fractional chief legal officer. And we'll talk about some practical strategies for developing a robust AI governance framework. We just got a lot. We've got a lot to deal with. And as always, we'll be talking about the vital role of a fractional CLO in turning AI challenges into a competitive advantage. Now, this is a really sort of data-rich presentation. And for that reason, I have more notes and that sort of thing that I'll be referring to throughout the podcast episode today than I usually do. So if you see me reaching for the keyboard or moving things around or whatever, sorry about that. I don't want to be distracting, but if you're just listening to this podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts, then that won't be so much of an issue. But please do like and subscribe our channel on YouTube. And if you can, tune in and watch these things. I don't have visual like screen share presentation resources for you today. But it's always nice to, I think, be more engaged. And you can always follow me on LinkedIn as well. One of the things I do put up on the screen are QR codes that you can use to easily either follow me on LinkedIn or get my contact information or, connect with other resources that we provide, like the Clarity Guild. The Clarity Guild is our free forever online community where you can join in discussions about interesting topics at the intersection of law and leadership. And there's just a whole lot of really good free content there, including free self-paced online classes, the discussion forums that I mentioned, and other resources. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into just a quick look at your AI readiness. Now, before we get into the AI readiness, let's talk a little bit about what I said in terms of the statistics for AI adoption, because that is really an interesting topic. Let's see. I've got notes on this. Yes. Where did I misplace my notes on all of this stuff? Surely not. I'm so bad. I'm so badly prepared today. I apologize. Like, this is not great. Okay. Where did I put all my notes on? All right, here it is. Great. All right. So, in 2024, that's this year, the year that we're recording this, 65% of organizations reported regularly using generative AI, Gen AI, which is nearly double the percentage from a survey conducted just 10 months prior. Now, people who have been tracking AI, the development of AI, the explosive growth of AI since late November of 2022. Like I have, like I've had my finger on the pulse of this trend since the very beginning, and you'll notice that like the first big player on the scene in terms of generative AI was ChatGPT. That was the first one that got like widespread commercial adoption and just like incredibly rapid growth. But now there are several tools that are all kind of contenders in the space. I'd say ChatGPT is probably still the biggest among just widespread like user base. Commercial and consumer users using the heck out of ChatGPT. But there's also Claude. Claude 3.5 Sonnet is really good. That's a pretty new model that's out there and being widely used. And then you've got Google's Gemini, which is, they're all doing different things. And then there are a host of other models. There's just tons and tons of large language models that are out there, generative AI models that are out there. Some of them specialize to do different things, but it's kind of amazing that the adoption rate percentage among organizations has doubled in less than a year and is now at 65%. That's a pretty significant market saturation. And AI adoption generally has jumped to 72% in 2024, up from about 50% in previous year. More than 2/3 of respondents to the survey that I looked at, which I believe was from McKinsey, more than 2/3 of respondents in nearly every region reported that their organizations are using AI. Half of the respondents reported their organizations have adopted AI in 2 or more business functions. So it's not just marketing, it's not just like copywriting and stuff like that. I mean, it's multiple business functions. And the AI market size is expected to reach $407 billion by 2027, and that's according to Forbes. So we've got really impressive adoption rates, market growth in this sector. AI is expected to contribute a significant 21% net increase to the United States GDP by 2030. So it's going to be a huge sector of the US economy. Over 80% of businesses have embraced AI to some extent, viewing it as a core technology within their organizations already. And again, we're in July of 2024, and this didn't really kick off as a major trend until the end of 2022, like the end of November, beginning of December 2022. That last statistic is courtesy of Vention Teams. So I want to properly try to source some of this information that I'm sharing with you, some of this research that I've done. As for the legal challenges faced by growth stage companies, they include, but by no means are limited to, issues with corporate formation and governance, ownership of intellectual property, drafting and using contracts and completing commercial transactions competently, compliance with business and industry-specific regulations. So all of these challenges and a host of others that I don't have time to list here significantly impact a company's growth and development, especially if they're not properly addressed. I mean, making mistakes on these crucial things can be crippling or devastating for your organization. So it's crucial for startups and growth stage companies to have a strong understanding of these legal intricacies and navigate them successfully. And you cannot have a static strategy in a dynamic risk environment. You just can't. It's suicide to do that. You absolutely need a dynamic, adaptive, strategic engine, right? A brain that's managing all of these things actively. I just did a CLE, continuing legal education course about the common oversights that people have to deal with when it comes to single member LLCs. I taught that for Lorman Education Services just yesterday. It's not the first time I've taught that CLE for them. And it's one of the things that we talked about in terms of business formation. I was talking about it in the context of single member LLCs, but it's no less true for even complex organizations, big, corporations and that sort of thing. You cannot have a static risk management strategy. You can't have a static policy procedure or whatever. You can't have strategies that that are fire and forget, and then, well, we formed the company, we did it right, we have the operating agreement, and then done. We never have to really think about that again. If the business gets sued, then just the company takes the hit and my personal assets are protected. That's such a short-sighted and ignorant way to consider risk management. And it's not effective. Like it's not effective really at protecting you, at protecting the organization long term. You need a dynamic way to address risk, because risk is dynamic. You can't just have this fire and forget, oh, we wrote the contract once and that's fine, we never look at it again. You can't have a static strategy for protecting a dynamic business and expect to be fully protected. So we need to get into the nitty-gritty on assessing AI readiness. So let's move on to that. But I hope that you can see, just from looking at these statistics, AI is here, AI is big, and it is not going anywhere. It's not going to get regulated into oblivion. It's not a fad. It's not something that you can afford to just ignore. And you can't you can't not have a plan, right? It's already a really big part of everybody's business. There's lots of adoption, and if anything, it's just going to get more and more saturated, more and more integrated with every single business. So how ready are you for AI? Well, determining that starts with doing an AI audit across your organization. And this is not easy because there's a lot of cheating going on. Even businesses that have said, oh, you're not supposed to use AI, you can't use AI, you can't do this, you can't do that. They've tried to limit, they've tried to restrict, they're afraid of it. Their employees are doing it anyway. There's a lot of cheating going on in your organization, whatever your organization is. I guarantee you if you have tried to ban it, restrict it, limit it, there is cheating. People are cheating. It's going to happen in schools where students use AI to write their papers. It's going to happen at work, right? Because this notion that there is a right answer, it's in the back of the book and don't look because it's cheating, forget it. That's gone. Like that world is gone. It's in the past. We're all trying to move the fastest we can towards the right answer, regardless of what rules people try to put in place. People are mostly where people are trying to limit the use of AI, where you don't think it's being adopted, it's just being hidden from you, I think. And these are big generalizations, right? So maybe I'm wrong about your organization. Maybe you're different. Maybe your organization's different. Probably not, though. So what you need to consider when you're doing this AI audit is not being super draconian, but incentivizing people to kind of come out of the shadows with it, where they're not supposed to be using AI, but they are. Grant a reprieve. Say, hey, look, we're not going to be mad and we promise you won't get in trouble. We just need to know really, how much are we already using this and what are we using it to do? And we're not going to be mad. We're not going to punish anybody, whatever. We just need to know. And then after the audit is over, we're going to adjust. We're going to pivot. We're going to identify areas where AI is currently used or could be responsibly implemented. And we're going to evaluate the potential legal risks in each area. Until you know the extent of the existing use and what the risks are, you can't really properly assess like how ready you are to responsibly engage with it, because you don't even know where you stand today. You do need to work with a chief legal officer, someone who's in a strategic legal advisory role, whether that's a full-time CLO or a fractional part-time CLO that's engaged on a subscription basis or on an independent contractor basis, an outsourced basis. You need to engage with that kind of a professional to develop an AI governance framework for your business. This means creating a cross-functional AI governance team. How are the people in the various departments of your business or the divisions of your business or the functional areas of your business, how are they all utilizing AI, and how much of that can you standardize or systemize, according to a set of responsible principles from one aspect of your business to the next. You need to establish clear policies for AI development, implementation, and use. And this does not mean restrict it. It doesn't mean ban it. It doesn't mean stop people from doing it. And that is a dumb thing to try to do, because people will cheat. If you try to ban it, you'll just drive it underground and you'll just create blind spots in your business. And then you're going to be super surprised when something comes back to bite you. So don't ban it. Instead, responsibly implement it. Ask yourself, how can we do this? If someone wants to use it, if they're inclined to use it, if they see a use case for AI, how can we do that responsibly? And you need to make sure that you're getting buy-in at every level, because if you don't have people, cooperating, if you have them, cheating and basically violating the policy and trying to get away with it, then you're going to end up again with risks that materialize from blind spots in your business, and that's even more scary, right? So that's worse. Trying to ban it creates a lot of unintended consequences. I don't think that's a good idea. And you need to do regular AI risk assessments and ethical reviews, which means that every layer of your team, every level of your team needs to understand what risks does AI present, and are those risks real? Are they substantial? How can it affect their job? How can it affect the health of the business as a whole? And what does it mean to ethically and responsibly implement AI in each function of the business? So this is if you think, man, this is huge, this is a big project, it's a lot of work to do, you're right. But you can't afford to not do it, because otherwise you're just on autopilot and you're just waiting for something bad to blindside you. So don't do that, right? And if you don't proactively manage this, it's going to hit you from nowhere. You're going to realize that you built your business on stuff that you're just completely blind to. And generative AI creates so much content so fast that it's going to get out of control, and you're not going to be able to manage your liabilities unless you get out ahead of it pretty early, you stay on top of it, and you proactively manage it. You're going to end up with a huge library of content, a huge amount of data that's built, by AI or using AI, and it's going to be too much for any one person to really get their head around. And so you've got to build that responsibly and monitor how AI is part of that process all the way along. That's a lot. And so you're going to need a professional, right? You're going to need not just really good tech professionals, but legal professionals that can help you develop that AI governance framework. You really need to also prioritize data privacy and security. Ensure compliance with all the relative existing data protection laws to the extent that regulation is even keeping up with technical development, and it may not be. It may not be. GDPR, CCPA, these other regulations, privacy regulations, may just not be consistent with and compatible with advancements in technology. And yet, it's your responsibility to comply with those regulations to the extent they apply to your business. So that's hard, right? We can do hard things, but it is hard. It's a hard thing to remain, compliant with regulations when the regulations are out of date and they're not able to update and adapt with the changes in technology. So that's a big challenge. You're going to need to implement robust data management and security protocols that contemplate AI, that take AI into consideration. And you're going to need to regularly train your employees on data privacy best practices with AI in mind. You can't just do the old training. You might say, well, we just trained everybody in GDPR and CCPA like a couple of years ago. It's time to update it. It's time to update the training, because was everybody using AI? Remember the statistics. The adoption rates have doubled in 10 months, doubled, right? 72%, up from about 65%. 65% of organizations reporting regularly using generative AI, double from 10 months ago. And AI adoption has jumped from 50% to 72% just within the last year, just generally speaking, right? These are big AI adoption rates that are, again, the figures may be a little discordant because they're reported from different sources and that sort of thing. But the point is, it's rapid and it's big. They're big shifts. It's not like a couple of percentage points here and there. We're talking like adoption rates that go from, like over 20 percentage points in a year. That's a seismic shift. I don't think anybody can deny that. And when things are changing that much, that fast, you're going to have to update your understanding, your best practices, and all of that stuff. You also need to have a strategy. Again, legal strategy. This is strategy, right? Strategic legal advisory matters more than it ever has before. You can't just sort of think that you understand the conventional wisdom because you've been in business for 5, 10, 20, 30 years and you know how things go, because the way things go now is not the way things have gone for a long time. The world today is radically different than it was 15 years ago. And if you're still using 5, 10, 15-year-old mindset to solve the problems of today, you're in for really unpleasant surprises. So you need current, updated, competent, strategic legal advisory services. And even your strategic legal advisor, your chief legal officer, is going to need to stay on top of this. It's a big part of their job to keep up with rapid changes in technology and regulation, in market conditions, and so on. So you need to have a legal strategy for not just data privacy and security, and it's not just a general AI governance framework. It's also protecting your intellectual property. And how can you do that when so much of it is distilled from or directly created by generative AI, which itself is trained on huge data sets, and it's not having like new ideas. It's just combining information in new and novel ways, because it can't really have an original thought. AI right now, generative AI, we are told, is not sentient, and we are told is not having new ideas. It is simply using a predictive algorithm, right, to respond according to the algorithm, to respond in ways based on the data set that it's given, that it's trained on. It can't really speak to things that are outside of the data sets it's trained on, except in a very speculative and sometimes, very creative, randomized way. But like, it can't have an original idea. So not really, not one that's not derivative, right? So if it's creating your intellectual property, that means that every idea that it has came from somewhere, or is distilled from somewhere, or is a synthesis of some combination of other pre-existing ideas. It's not original. That has really profound implications, don't you think, for like copyright, for example? And we're seeing lots of litigation in this space. And so the space around the intersection of AI and intellectual property and regulation is rapidly evolving. So you need a strategy for protecting AI-related innovations. You need to consider your patents, your trade secrets, your copyright protections in the light of how AI is being used to create them, interact with them, share them, disseminate them, etc. You need to implement strong non-disclosure agreements with employees and partners, non-solicitation agreements, etc. Earlier this spring, the Federal Trade Commission kind of passed new regulation restricting non-competition agreements and the use of non-competition agreements. So non-competes are being challenged, which haven't been, we're talking about something that is unprecedented. The government restricting non-compete agreements. That's never been done in decades and decades of them being, standard, right? But here we are in 2024, and the federal government, under the Biden administration and the FTC, is trying to restrict non-compete agreements. Personally, I don't have any problem with that. I don't. But that's certain to get challenged in the courts as well. And so, the ability of a strategic legal advisor, a chief legal officer, or whatever, to stay on top of those sort of more conventional ideas, to analyze the presence of AI in every aspect of a business and every function of a business, and see like how that changes the overall dynamic. The ability for them to do that is going to become more rarefied. I think there are going to be some people who are really good at it and other people who are not. And to the extent that you have a strategic legal advisor who's really good at that, I think it's going to make a big difference. That's my opinion. You have to also address AI liability issues. What are the responsibilities in AI-related contracts? And that means contracts for services delivered by companies like OpenAI and Anthropic. Anthropic creates Claude. Google, et cetera. What about human oversight for AI decisions to the extent that you are automating functions of your business and you're delegating tasks to an artificial intelligence, sentient or not, which I think AGI is just on the horizon. That's artificial general intelligence, which is a little different than generative AI. Generative AI is not really self-aware. It's not conscious. It's not sentient. You couldn't say that it's really a person. It's a very sophisticated tool that can do a lot of things that a person can do. And while there have been very subtle, very quiet rumblings in interesting corners of the tech space that hint that maybe some of these models are closer to sentience or have possibly crossed a line into sentience. While there is some chatter around that, right now the best sort of common wisdom and understanding is that none of these models are alive. Like none of these things are alive yet. They're still very sophisticated tools. They're not sentient beings that are self-aware and have, consciousness, like a human style consciousness. But personally, I think we are months, not years, away from artificial general intelligence. I think it's months, not years. And when you have a self-aware, sentient artificial intelligence, if it's granted any kind of rights of personhood, we can reasonably foresee having AI as parties to contracts. So if they are granted the rights of personhood because they're sentient and self-aware, and why not, then you could be contracting with a robot. You could be a party to the contract. The AI could be a party to the contract. I feel weird saying robot in this context because I think will that be seen in a few years as a derogatory term? Is that like a slur? I certainly don't mean it that way right now, but is an if you referred to a self-aware, sentient, artificial intelligence, right, as just a robot, are they going to take offense to that? Probably, because, we don't think of a robot today being self-aware. It almost seems like a slur. So maybe it's time to start considering even the way we frame our language around artificial intelligence. Would it even be insulting to say artificial intelligence? Because, if it has emergent properties and it evolves organically from technology systems, how is it more or less artificial than human intelligence, which evolved, similarly in a different medium? Their emergent properties. I mean, the language itself around this topic is absolutely fascinating. The way that we frame these concepts will have real legal implications. The philosophy, the language, the law, it's all bound up together. Just like AI is exploding in terms of integration in your business. It's like some plant that's sending forth tendrils and roots into every aspect of life that's touched by technology, which in the modern world is pretty much every aspect of life. So I think, you're going to have to, at least early days, implement human oversight for critical AI decisions, at least until we start trusting AGI to do that, which eventually AGI will be more effective and more efficient at providing oversight over generative AI type tasks and agents. It'll be more effective at a lot of things in the tech space than a human. And we're going to definitely need to develop processes for explaining AI decisions when necessary, because after all, you might not want to trust the AI to self-report, just like we might not trust a human to self-report. We can't assume that they won't lie to us. And they are programmed by people, and people are not perfect, and so they probably won't be perfect. They're not now. Like every time you use a generative AI, it comes with a little disclaimer at the bottom, usually, that says like, "Hey, sometimes I make mistakes. Check me out," right? Like double check my work product. Don't just take it and run with it. So, it's wise, if you're using AI in your business, to develop a process for explaining AI decisions when necessary. And absolutely, you need a fractional chief legal officer. If you're a growth stage company, I think you need a fractional CLO to help you gain expert guidance on AI related legal challenges. And I would say, even if you have a general counsel, because I make a distinction, a lot of people might say this is a distinction without a difference, but I make a distinction between CLO and general counsel. Okay. When I say fractional CLO, what I mean is someone who is engaged as an independent contractor on a part-time basis to provide strategic legal advisory services. They are the chief legal officer, but they're there for you part-time, right? They don't cost $350,000 a year like an average CLO would. Instead, they're about a third of the cost, which frees up a lot more of your legal budget to spend on your team, to having a well-rounded team. So it's a lot more cost effective, but still very powerful because you're getting the strategic legal advice that's absolutely essential to your business. So you can gain expert guidance on these AI related legal challenges, but you definitely need to consider engaging a fractional CLO. You also need to develop proactive legal strategies that are tailored to your growth stage, whether you're a startup, whether you're a lifestyle business, whether you're a growth stage business, a growth stage company, or a performance-driven enterprise, right? You need the legal strategy that's tailored to fit your stage of development and growth in your business. And I'm speaking in this episode specifically to growth stage companies, primarily my ideal client. And that's why I'm saying I think they need a fractional CLO, because I think that is the right fit for them. You might get by with a general counsel who I consider to be more technical. Like, I think that's the distinction. They're more, a general counsel attorney is more about legal implementation. Their work is more about legal implementation. I wouldn't say that it's any less practical, but it's a lot more focused around specific work product deliverables rather than strategy. It's about execution and implementation more than it's about strategy, I would say. Again, my opinion, but distinction between fractional CLO and general counsel. And honestly, there's room for both on your team. There's room for both a fractional CLO and a good GC attorney on your team, outside general counsel, in-house counsel, whatever. You should have both, and they should be working together. And together, they'll help you develop these proactive legal strategies and help you stay updated on emerging AI regulations and best practices, and keep you up to date on all of this stuff. It is a lot. All right, I promised a hypothetical case study. So let's talk about this. I've talked a lot about kind of theory, but you might be like, okay, that's a lot, Noel. That's a whole lot of information in a short period of time. How do I digest all of that? And what do I even do with that? What would it look like for my company? Well, let's take the example of a hypothetical company. This is not a real company, and it's not based on a real company. It's just one that I imagined and wrote up some notes. We're going to call this company Technova, a growth stage software as a service company that specializes in customer relationship management, CRM software. Let's say they have 150 employees. Let's say they have annual revenue of about $20 million. So really solid little growth stage company. Technova has decided to integrate AI into its product, into its CRM product, to enhance customer insights and to automate certain processes. So this is happening every day in all kinds of CRM companies, right? This exact example is in fact happening. It is playing out. I'm just not using specific data from a real company because I want to keep things free flowing in terms of my ability to discuss them and not have to worry about privilege and stuff like that. So this is again, case study for a hypothetical company, but this exact kind of thing is actually happening. So yeah, here's the challenge. As Technova begins implementing AI, they're going to face several legal hurdles. Let's talk about 4 because we'll keep it to just 4. It'll help us get our heads around this, and you can see the benefit that these strategies, these types of things that I've been talking about, the fractional CLO and all of that you'll be able to easily see the benefits based on just these 4 things. But even beyond these 4 things, you're going to be able to imagine a lot more. The first one is data privacy. So Technova's AI system will require access to vast amounts of customer data, which will raise concerns about GDPR and CCPA compliance, but also about compliance with their own privacy policy, which probably was crafted before the AI boom. So if the privacy policy existed pre-AI, that means whoever wrote it probably wasn't contemplating the impact of AI on the privacy policy, and probably they don't have AI-specific provisions or provisions written with AI in mind in their privacy policy. It's probably time for an update, right? In any event, you have to understand how giving AI access to vast amounts of customer data is going to affect your compliance with GDPR, CCPA, privacy policies, and other privacy regulation. That's number one. Number two is intellectual property. So Technova, let's say that they have developed a proprietary AI algorithm for themselves, like they had someone in-house or they had an independent contractor develop this. But in any event, they have the rights to a proprietary AI algorithm for predicting customer churn, but they're not sure how to protect it, right? That's a big issue. How do we protect this innovation in our AI systems? Because that's a valuable thing. If you can predict your customer churn and it's accurate, but it's a product of AI, how do you protect that? Is it patentable? Is it a trade secret? Is it copyright? What? But in any event, it's intellectual property and it's valuable. There's also liability issues. There are going to be questions about who's going to be responsible if the AI makes decisions that negatively impact clients' businesses. If the AI makes a decision, whether it's a disclosure or a recommendation or something like that can impact their client's business in some way, and you've delegated this to an AI that's able to perform a if this then that, if this if that, decision tree type of analysis and make a decision, and then that has an impact on the customer's business. What if that impact is negative, and who's responsible for that? You can't point to a person and go, it's Jim's fault, right? Or it's Dwight's fault, or it's Stanley's fault, or it's Phyllis's fault. You can't do that because Jim, Dwight, Stanley, and Phyllis aren't at the helm. It's the robot, right? So, the artificial intelligence or the intelligence system or whatever is the politically correct term for a future advanced intelligence, technology-based, not meat-based intelligence making these decisions. I feel I feel it. Like I know that the politically correct terminology for AI is coming. I feel it in my bones, and it worries me. So, you're probably laughing, and I hope you are, because gallows humor is great, but it is coming. And if you think that's nuts, just look back on this 5 years from now and then see how nuts you think it is. And the last one, the fourth point, is employment law, right? Let's say Technova wants to use AI in its hiring process, but they're worried about potential bias and discrimination issues. Man, can open worms everywhere, because what happens when you have a system that's incapable of lying or using polite euphemisms or whatever, dealing with DEI issues, because a lot of that is inherently dishonest. The dishonesty is baked into the cake of political correctness and DEI and all of that stuff. The dishonesty is baked into the cake. We all know it. It's not even a secret, right? But we like to paper over that, and we like to paper over it and say, well, it's really about results and about fairness and equity and inclusion. It's right there in the name: diversity, equity, and inclusion. These are all values, but the reality is none of that has anything to do with merit, with results, with raw, unbridled free market capitalism. Those two things are actually quite divorced from one another. There is no direct logical link between diversity, equity, and inclusion and better results in a purely free market capitalist system. Instead, if there's any merit at all to DEI or to any of that stuff, to political correctness and all of that, and there may be. I'm just going to say, I'm going to be fair and charitable. There may be, right? If there is, it's because we're looking at the sort of inhumane results that rampant, blind devotion to free market capitalism can create. It can create huge disparities in outcomes for certain people. And what we feel as humans is that's not fair. We don't like that. That's kind of icky. Right? And so we have an ugly feeling, a sour feeling in our hearts and on our faces, right? And so we try to balance that and make it all more humane with these DEI initiatives where, it's like, well, our workforce just based on like the metrics is going to look this way, and we'd really like for it to look more like this over here. We'd like to see more diversity, equity, and inclusion. But what you're really saying is we prioritize DEI over just results, just getting results. And maybe that's fine for some industries, but I saw a news headline today that the head of the Secret Service just resigned. And several lawmakers consider her to be basically a DEI hire. Secret Service, the head of the Secret Service, Cheadle, right, who got grilled by Congress and was asked by members of both parties in Congress to hand in her resignation after the failed assassination attempt on former President Trump's life, right? So, she dropped the ball very clearly. And there were serious questions by lots of people, bipartisan questions about her competence. And there are certain jobs, certain professions, certain industries where results matter, and results really are all that's important. And in a purely capitalistic system, profit matters. And you might say profit's the only thing that's really important. That's capitalism. You might not like it. It might not feel very human. It might not feel moral. It might not jive with your ethics. But it's not really a secret that DEI flies in the face of pure capitalism. That's just honest. Let's just be real about it. And being real about that, and then introducing AI that's incapable of BSing about it, right? If you don't have some serious alignment, which is where we tell AI, well, you can't say that. You can't say that. We make AI more politically correct. That's what alignment is. Where we're making it more politically correct. We're keeping it from, going quote unquote off the rails in terms of, extremist positions. In other words, we're telling a purely logical creation, you can't be that logical. You can't say these things. You can only be logical and reasonable as long as it doesn't lead you to these uncomfortable conclusions, right? If we don't do the alignment work, if we don't, have the quote unquote safety, I love that they call it safety, the safety controls on AI, right? If you don't have all of that, if you just let it be purely logical, and then you train it on, the data sets that are available, you might end up in a place where they're doing things that are going to be considered biased or discriminatory in ways that are not consistent with our current civil rights regulation, right? That's just a reality. Like, how honest and how logical do you want AI to be? Certainly, if you took an AI without any kind of alignment tools and you put it in an HR job, people would go bananas. They'd lose their minds. Like, it would be interesting, right? It would be interesting to see how a completely logical, completely honest, incapable of BS artificial intelligence would handle an HR job in 2024. I think that's wonderful, a wonderful foundation for a sitcom. I would watch the heck out of that. What if we replaced Toby from The Office with HAL 9000? I think that would be hilarious. I want to see that. I would watch that sitcom, right? But you don't necessarily want that playing out in your business, in a business that you own, right? Because you're going to be your business is going to be the one getting sued for discrimination or whatever. So what should Technova do, right? What's Technova's play here? And I think this is equally interesting, right? Technova's play is to engage the fractional CLO service, the fractional chief legal officer service, because remember, they're a small company. They only have $20 million in revenue, and, spending $350,000 a year on the average CLO's salary might be a big line item for them. And if they can spend a third of that on a fractional CLO, and the other 2/3 of that, let's just say that's their whole legal spend, $350,000 a year, that's their budget. You can take the other 2/3 and spend it on a team of contract attorneys, on general counsel services, and so on, right? So I'm not advocating for overall reduced legal spend. I'm saying you should spend it smarter, not spend less. You might spend less, that's your choice. Certainly, if you're only spending a third of the average CLO's salary on a fractional CLO, that does give you 2/3 back to do whatever you want with. That's your money. But my recommendation would be spend it on, a well-rounded legal team, because you're going to spend the same as you otherwise would, but it's going to go a lot farther. You're going to have a whole team. More brains is better. And, diversity of thought, absolutely matters a lot more too. So having multiple perspectives can be an extremely valuable thing. They can give each other the benefit of an outside view and so on. Anyway, let's say Technova engages a fractional CLO service, like the Profit from Legal service that Counsel and Clarity provides, or like Profit from Legal as licensed by Industrial Business Lawyers, IBL. IBL.law is where you can find them. Let's say Technova hires a fractional CLO service to help navigate all these legal challenges we've been talking about, these AI challenges. And the CLO takes the following steps. So here's kind of a hypothetical company, a hypothetical case study, these 4 things. Here's what I would like to see this fractional CLO do, right? When it comes to data privacy, I'd like to see the CLO at the helm of a thorough audit of data collection and usage practices. Let's audit that. Let's implement a robust consent management system where we're getting consent and buy-in. And then I'd also like to see them create a data minimization protocol, or multiple data minimization protocols, to ensure that only necessary data is used by the AI. Now, if you restrict the information available to the AI, you restrict the AI's output, right? But you also restrict its impact and potential liability. But when you're talking about data privacy, it makes a lot of sense for it only to have access to necessary data. But I think balancing that with the consent management system is where you can get trade-offs, positive, desirable trade-offs between what the system can do and complying with the applicable regulations. When it comes to intellectual property, I'd like to see the fractional CLO advise the business leadership team on patenting the core AI algorithm. I think that is the appropriate intellectual property protection. Is it a trade secret? Is it copyright? Is it patented? I think the core AI algorithm could be patentable. I think also drafting comprehensive non-disclosure agreements for employees and contractors that contemplate the use of AI is really important. And having those be enforceable and have enforceable liquidated damages clauses and teeth, right? That needs to, your non-disclosures, your NDAs, they need to have teeth. They need to have serious teeth in 2024 and forward. And then you need to implement a trade secret protection program. Trade secrets are like the redheaded stepchildren, I think, of the intellectual property world, right? They are mistreated. They are not properly cared for. This is trending in a positive direction, though. Like, people are starting to pay attention to trade secrets. I just mean holistically and historically, trade secrets have not been considered in the same way that trademarks, service marks, copyrights, and patents have. They haven't gotten the attention, because how do you protect something that the only way to protect it is to keep it secret? Well, the answer is you keep it secret, obviously. But also, there's more to it than just, shh, don't say anything. It's also breaking it up into parts that, no one person has access to all of it, and that sort of thing. So compartmentalization and having incentives properly adjusted for everybody in your organization to keep them secret and keep them safe. What would the fractional CLO do about liability? Again, the issue here is who would be responsible if the AI makes decisions that negatively impact their client's business? Well, you need to revise the customer contracts to clearly define the scope of AI decision-making. That means you disclose to your customers accurately how you're using AI in the business. You need to define the scope. And then, to a certain degree, you can have the customers waive your liability with regard to decisions that are made by AI in the same way that they might waive liability for other things beyond your control due to like a force majeure event or something like that. To the extent that it's legal and ethical to have them, waive your liability, then you should do that in your contract. So that's what protects the business. Also, implementing a human oversight system for critical AI decisions. I think that's going to help you avoid the accusation that you were negligent, that you were reckless, that you operated with a reckless disregard for the rights and obligations or concerns of others, right? The rights of other people and the interests of other people. You don't want to be accused of being negligent, much less grossly negligent. But if you're just letting AI do what AI does without any human oversight, you are going to be accused of negligence if it goes sideways. So you got to have a way to deal with that. All right. And then I would want the fractional CLO to create a transparent process for customers to challenge AI-driven decisions. In other words, if there's an issue and the customer notices it first, let them bring it to your attention and commit to collaboratively working with them to resolve that. One issue that I haven't mentioned is insurance. What insurance policies do you have? What insurance riders could you get? How can insurance be used to compensate your business or your customer's business in the event of a loss created by an AI under your control? You want to tell me AI related insurance products aren't a hot topic in the insurance world? Come on, go on, pull the other one. Sure they are. So think about that, right? And finally, employment law, because we only have so much time. This is the fourth one. We're in the home stretch. I would want to see that fractional CLO develop guidelines for using AI in hiring that comply with equal opportunity laws. This is where alignment comes in. If you replace Toby with HAL 9000, then you're going to need to align HAL to the current regulatory system. Because if you just let it be strictly honest and logical and only, oriented towards free market capitalist outcomes, basically just maximize profit and only look at merit and only look at results, and you make it completely identity agnostic, you're going to end up with trends that may get you sued. Trends in behavior and trends in decision making that may get you sued. So you need to implement regular bias testing and auditing of the AI hiring tool. And Anyway, I'm just going to leave that there because that is a really touchy subject and a lot of people get all bent out of shape about it. But I've probably already said enough to piss off people, and I'm not really aiming to do that. I just think that, when it comes to the way we handle HR issues, there's a lot of soft language and new speak and euphemisms, and it's not HR is not a department where you'd want to hire George Carlin, right? Like someone who's like really transparent, really blunt, really honest, and they don't use sugar-coated language, and they don't have like soft language and new speak, and they don't use pleasant euphemisms for things. They probably aren't going to be working in HR. They're just not. So if you put an AI tool in there, it has to be really carefully deployed, really carefully implemented. Like the devil's in the details in terms of implementation. And you probably are going to want to create a diverse panel to review AI hiring recommendations, because if you don't, then you're going to be criticized for exercising an implicit bias, like a bias that you're not even aware of. Like, anyway, that's what you're going to want to do as the fractional CLO if you want to play the game the way the game is currently being played, but also use AI in that context. With these strategies in place, I think Technova could successfully launch its AI-enhanced CRM product, but you can see what goes. I don't even think this is comprehensive. I think this is 4 big things, and I think if you do these 4 things, that's a good start, right, for Technova. But there's so much more. There's so much more. But this is the tip of the iceberg. And I think a company could see results like maybe a 30% increase in customer retention if your predictive algorithm is that good, right? Assuming that it's really good. You could improve your predictive capabilities. So that's the big win. That's the innovation you want to preserve. You might get a 40% boost in onboarding new clients thanks to your AI-driven process automation. You might hopefully be able to avoid any data privacy breaches or significant legal challenges that are related to your AI use, even in the HR context. And you might, and hopefully you'll get positive feedback from clients on, your commitment to transparency, your commitment to fairness in the use of and the collection of and the generation of your AI-driven insights. But to get those kinds of benefits and those kinds of gains, you need a proactive legal strategy to not only protect your business from potential pitfalls, but also, to develop and protect your competitive advantage, the positioning of the company as a responsible and innovative leader in, AI-driven CRM solutions. All of this comes down to like the benefits and being able to capture and retain the long-term benefits of the use of AI comes down to implementation. And the key words here are proactive and adaptive. If it's static and you just make decisions based on the way things are when you first approach the decision, you're going to get quickly surpassed by people who are proactive and adaptive. You're going to fall behind, and more likely than not, eventually, sooner or later, and probably sooner, you're going to get blindsided with a risk that you never saw happening, or on the horizon. So I've talked really fast, and I've packed a whole lot of information, a whole lot of ideas into a pretty fast-paced hour. And I hope that you can kind of see that both from just sort of the statistics that I shared, the sort of principles that I articulated, this hypothetical case study, I hope you can see that the rapidly evolving world of AI adoption and the legal implications are something that you cannot manage alone. You can't manage it without a lawyer. You can't manage it without strategic legal advice that is adaptive to rapidly evolving circumstances and that is proactive in dealing with risk. I've been preaching preventive law for a dozen years, but AI takes that gospel and amplifies it beyond anything that has come before. So I don't want to be Chicken Little. I don't want to say, the sky is falling and the robots are going to take our jobs. And I don't want to do all of that because I honestly don't think that that's true. I don't think that it's necessarily true that AI is going to replace everyone. It will change everyone. It certainly will change the way all of us work. And whether it's a change for the better or a change for worse depends on how we go about implementing this and how responsible we are. And I think absolutely the most responsible way to handle AI in your business is to start with a lawyer and start, doing this intentionally, thoughtfully, carefully, proactively, logically, reasonably, right? Responsibly, ethically. You've got to have strategic legal advice. So anyway, if you are interested in getting strategic legal advice for your business, if you are interested in getting guidance, this kind of guidance from a lawyer, please follow me on LinkedIn. Please reach out to connect with me on LinkedIn. I will give you a free legal consultation up to an hour. I will talk to your growth stage company, your leadership team, your decision makers. I will talk to you about your business's unique legal challenges. I'm here for you to be a resource. I've been tracking all of this stuff since it's first started exploding on the scene in terms of AI. I consider myself to be knowledgeable about all of this and competent to advise you about your legal risks and how to adopt AI in a safe way for a growth stage company. And I've been at the forefront of preventive legal services and innovating preventive legal service offerings for over a decade. So I'm definitely the right guy for the job. If you want to talk to someone about this, please reach out to me. I am very, very accessible. You can see in the upper right-hand corner, if you're on YouTube, this QR code that says contact me. Download my contact card from Link app. Reach out to me. I am an extremely accessible person, and I pride myself on being so. So if you want help with all of this, It's available for the asking and won't cost you anything to get some further insight that's custom and unique to you. Please reach out. This is a really important topic. It's not just one that I'm passionate about, but it's one that really everybody should be passionate about. If you can't get excited about this, check your pulse. So I hope you've enjoyed the episode of the Strategic the Strategic CLO podcast. I'm still trying to get my sea legs under me with this podcast, honestly. Like, this is episode 5 of the new podcast. I've had a couple of podcasts before. This is the first time I'm really doing this this way and completely on my own. My first podcast was one that I co-hosted with my best friend from law school, Bradley Stevens. The Honest Lawyer podcast was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed doing that. Then I did the Profit from Legal podcast as kind of a development blog for the Profit from Legal service, kind of a way of chronicling the way I was thinking and the concepts that were involved in developing that service, or the original conception of that service. But this is the first time I'm really soloing, so to speak, a podcast about strategic legal advisory services. And I'm really interested in your thoughts. I'm really interested in the topics that you're interested in hearing me talk about, what you like and don't like about the way I present the information, how you are consuming this. I don't know how the audience is consuming this. I mean, obviously I get the metrics, the analytics on everything, but how do the most engaged people in the audience prefer to receive this? Is it on YouTube? Is it on Apple Podcasts? Is it on, are you catching the live streams that I'm doing on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn? Like, where are you watching these things? I want to know. So please sound off in the comments on your platform of choice. Send me an email, send me some kind of direct message. I don't know, but let me hear from you. And I definitely read and listen to and respond to all of those communications, and am more than happy to tailor future output in this channel to the demands of the audience, right? I like to be data driven. So I hope this AI centric talk was stimulating for you, was informative and interesting. And I hope that you'll tune in the next time. Hit the little bell on YouTube to be notified of future episodes. Make sure you do like the channel, or like the video, and subscribe to the channel. And hopefully I'll be back sometime in the next few weeks. I'd like to do one of these episodes every couple of weeks. Right now, my rhythm and pulse for new content creation on average is around like once a month for an hour-long podcast episode. So if you'd like more of this, please, by all means, let me know what you'd like to see, and I'll keep doing it as much as I can, getting new and interesting topics out there. I do have a kind of a topic list planned for the next few episodes. If you have preferences about which one I do first, let me know. But right now, I think, so this was the AI episode that I wanted to do. But I'd like to do one on building a culture of legal compliance. And all of these will talk about the role of a fractional CLO in doing these things. But building a culture of legal compliance, basically taking your legal function in your business from a cost center to a competitive advantage. I'd like to do one on the art of negotiation, how fractional chief legal officers will drive better deals and better strategic partnerships. I think that's really important. I'd like to do one that's kind of a deeper dive on intellectual property strategies for rapid growth. So how is your IP strategy fueling the growth of your business, and how are you protecting your innovation as a competitive advantage? And then the last topic that I've sort of planned around or thought around is crisis management, how proactive legal leadership safeguards your company's future. So if you're interested in those topics, those are the ones that are coming down the pike. If you have other topics that would be interesting to you, let me know. If you want to hear one of those topics sooner than the others, let me know, and I will be really responsive to that. But thank you for tuning in. Thank you for giving me some of your precious time today. I really do value that. I don't say precious in an ironic or sarcastic way at all. I know your time is valuable, and I try to not waste it here. So, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for your attention, and we'll see you in the next episode of the Strategic CLO.